Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Club of Portland. We'd like to give a special welcome to our guests in the audience who have joined us today. The future of the city is at the heart of the City Club. Today, we have the opportunity to hear about the views, plans, and vision of the two leading candidates for the mayor of the City of Portland. With us today are Earl Blumenauer and Vera Katz. The program will have several sections. First, each candidate will give a 5-minute opening statement. Following the opening statements, candidates will respond to questions from our City Club panel. Our questioners today are members of the program committee: Vivian Solomon, attorney with Lane Powell Spears Libersky, and Jeff Tashman, principal with Tashman Associates. Questions were submitted in advance of the meeting in writing by members of the City Club. A special subcommittee of the City Club's program committee has selected the questions for today's program. These are the only questions that will be asked today, and there will be no questions from the floor. The candidates have not seen these questions in advance. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question, and our timer seated in the front today is Jolene Clausen, also from the program committee. Following the panel questions, we will have 3 cross questions from the candidates. Following the cross questioning, we will return to our City Club panel for a series of questions, which will be followed by 3-minute closing statements from each candidate. This meeting is governed by the program format that we've just gone over and by the rules of conduct which are displayed on all of your tables. Our program will adjourn at 1 p.m. I would now like to ask each of the candidates to approach their podiums, and we will begin with opening statements. We will begin with an opening statement from Earl Blumenauer, followed by that of Vera Katz.
Thank you very much. I would like to take the first minute of my presentation for us all to silently reflect on the tragedy, injustice, and violence that's being visited upon Los Angeles and other communities across this nation, and what we as individuals will do to try and help heal the pain across this nation. Now, perhaps some of you who have been going to a lot of political debate would wish that there would be a little more silent reflection and listening. But one of the things that I think that we can feel good about today, and Vera and I are going to be involved with some spirited questions. We may even try and point out a little bit of difference between the two of us. But one of the things that I'm proud of is a commitment that Vera has to human dignity, human rights, anti-discrimination. It's one that you can count on me to carry forth if I am your mayor. It's something that reflects the character of Mayor Bud Clark, of Gretchen Kafori, of Mike Lindberg, of Dick Vogel, of Charlie Hales, of Chuck Diamond, David Little. In fact, as we've gone around the community for the various candidate forums, one of the things that comes forward is the commitment to justice, diversity, harmony in this community, and there are a whole host of things that divide other communities that will not be a part of this debate today. And I think we can all be proud and happy that that's the case. But it does give us an opportunity then to focus on some other areas that I think this forum at the City Club is very appropriate to serve, to put in perspective why we're here. And I would suggest that there are 3 areas that I would like you to focus on. It's not a question of vision, as our friend Tom Walsh said from the City Club forum just a couple of months ago. There's no shortage of vision in this community. The question is our ability to translate that vision those good intentions, to the ability to solve problems. The three keys are management skills, fiscal responsibility, and leadership. When the mayor leaves the council chamber, the job is just beginning in Portland. They must manage a large and complex organization. And I've proven to you my ability to deliver major projects. The Central City Plan, the Recycling Initiative, Regional Rail, the Mid-County Sewer Project, to assemble a team of outstanding managers, bring together the community, work through the technicalities, and put it into action. I will not be a mayor that you have to wonder how long I have to work on the job to learn the job. The second area deals with fiscal responsibility. This campaign and the next administration take place in difficult economic circumstances. And it's not fair to ask the taxpayers to come forward with more money to replace the property tax or to spend to give new money to various special interests, no matter how appealing. I haven't and I won't. I have proven my ability to manage your money carefully. But now, as perhaps never before, Portland needs the leadership to bring people together to solve problems. I've shown that ability and my commitment to do just that. As I look around this room, hundreds of you have been involved with programs that I've had, the Regional Rail Summit, the workshops on the vehicle confiscation program to take away the cars of repeat drunk drivers, recycling and sewers. And my campaign has initiated a series of public community projects to bring together Portlanders to solve problems. Action to help kids trying to escape gangs, improve the environment, deal with social services, and now an initiative to control gun violence. I've brought together people as a city commissioner. You've seen me do that as a candidate, and that's the sort of leadership that you can count on me to deliver if you will honor me with the privilege of serving as your next mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenauer. Ms. Katz, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. This afternoon, I'd like to focus my opening remarks on two of Portland's most pressing issues, crime and fiscal responsibility, for in them you can find a telling difference between myself and my opponent. This week, a Portlander will be murdered. Today, a Portland woman will be raped. There will be 13 new victims of aggravated assault, 18 vehicles stolen, and a home will be burglarized every hour, all in our city of roses. But there are realities that the statistics do not reveal. An elderly neighbor who told me this winter that she doesn't go outside after 4:30 in the afternoon because she feels afraid on her own street. Or a 10-year-old child who asked me what I could do as mayor so that she would stop feeling afraid of drugs and violence at school. Awful things. No amount of wishful thinking can hide the fact that we are so short of police officers that auto theft and most other property crimes aren't even investigated. We are all victims of crime, even if we were never bugged or our car stolen. We are victims because it makes us all fearful, and when we live in fear, our true quality of life is diminished. That's why I pushed the city council to hire at least 100 additional police officers in the next fiscal year, and their response was, Representative Katz, we just don't have any money. I'm appearing before you today to tell you, the City Club, and the people of Portland that the money is there and then some. Volunteers and I have identified specific short and long-term budget savings of up to $5 million. Safer streets and a safer city will require more than additional officers to fully implement community policing, the linking of intervention and prevention strategies with crime suppression by replicating Columbia Villa, Iris Court, Brentwood, Darlington, by maximizing jail space, and a rational consolidation of city and county law enforcement efforts into a new single metropolitan agency, paving the way for regionalization of specific law enforcement functions. My opponent, in the face of an election in response to criticism to get serious about crime, voted no on the budget, expressing concerns. That was it. For all his claims of fiscal responsibility and local government experience, all he was willing to do was cast a no vote, offering no motion, no amendments, no alternative, just business as usual. That's not leadership. The story here is not so much that I found the potential savings to hire 100 police. It's that I had to, because no one on the city council, including the commissioner who wants to be promoted to mayor, would. That's not leadership. My opponent says that his management competency and experience are also the reasons that he should be mayor. But let's look at the record. Business leaders reported after a review of his agency, the Bureau of Environmental Services, that there was, quote, no clear sense of direction, no inadequate oversight, no indication of cost-benefit analysis in any budget document reviewed, no priority setting among programs, and described the expensive public relations strategy for the combined sewer overflow project that appears as a misinformation campaign. That's neither management competency nor leadership. For Portland, leadership is the issue this election. We face great challenges as a city, challenges that are not simply the matter of rearranging the seating in the city council chambers. As a community, we cannot respond to these challenges without leaders that are willing to question, to innovate, to change. It's that leadership that can tap our gifts of imagination and courage and to create a future where we dare to dream. 15 years ago, Portland had that kind of leadership, and it worked. And with the right leadership, we can make it happen again. That is what I am offering, and that's what this race is all about.
Thank you. We will now move to the portion of the program which consists of questions from our City Club panel. I'll turn the program over to the panelists, Vivian Solomon and Jeff Tashman. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question asked, after which the other candidate will have 1 minute to rebut. The first question is for Mr. Blumenauer, and it will come from Vivian Solomon.
Mr. Blumenauer, there is a perception that city government is an inefficient bureaucracy. If you think this is wrong, how would you change people's views? To the degree that it's true, how would you restore efficiency?
The organization is as good as the people in it and our ability to tap the resources to make it improve in the future. I am not one of the people who use the structure of city government as an excuse not to get things done. The next mayor will be elected under the commission form of government and will serve in that capacity for at least 2 or 3 years. I have in the past been more than willing to see us come on forward with charter review. I think since we've had it since 1913 that it's long overdue to have a review and a revision. And I am open to alternatives that deal with either a strong mayor or a strong manager. But in the interim, I will not use the structure as an excuse not to deliver. My commitment will be to work with each man and woman on the council to negotiate performance contracts, to hold each of us accountable to improve productivity and to deliver quality products. That's what I've done with Mayor Clark in my bureaus. That's what I do with my colleagues.
I do think that the governance structure is archaic. We're the only city this size that has a commission form of government. It is one of the greatest conflict of interests to have elected officials not only set policy, manage bureaus, and then decide what their budget is. And certainly one of the ways that we can deal with better efficiency is begin to look at the budget process, which is the policy document for the city of Portland. We need to look at the modification of a zero-based budget concept, cost-benefit analysis, performance results, and begin finding the savings that we need to deal with the challenges of ballot measure number 5.
Ms. Katz, polls continue to show deep discontent among voters toward government, which raises doubt whether anyone can be effective in the midst of this environment. Why should we believe that you will get things done in this climate?
When I took over the leadership of the House of Representatives for 6 years, I turned to Senator John Kitzhaber, who was then elected president of the Senate, and we looked at each other and we said, we're going to do it differently. And we set a trend and a tone for the legislature where our top priority was to regain the trust and confidence of the citizens with their government. And we decided that we were going to work in a team effort. And we worked together as two chambers previously divided, and with the governor, first Governor Atiyeh and then Governor Goldschmidt. And what we were able to do was tell Oregonians what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, where we failed, where we succeeded, and why. That style of leadership, of collaboration, consensus building, talking it straight, no half-truths, and being concerned about the anxieties and frustrations of our citizens is what I know how to deal with, and it's what I care to improve on so that we can have that relationship between our citizens and our government.
Over the course of the last 14 years, I have tackled some of the most controversial issues in the local government arena. When I started working on behalf of light rail, it wasn't popular. Likewise, the work that we've done with recycling. More recently, you've seen me being grilled about the issue of sewer relief in mid-Multnomah County. Some wondered if I would survive. What we've done is to understand the issues, take time to appreciate the details. Listen to people, not just the emotions and the anger, but listen past that to what is motivating them. Take the time to do the homework. Bring people together so they feel that they are a part of whether it's expanding light rail or they're a part of the recycling program or even the sewer issue. Then you make your best possible decision, you sit back and you take the heat.
Mr. Blumenauer, Portland Future Focus details many long-term goals for the city. Which future focus goal do you consider most important to implement and why, and how would you fund it?
The issues that are facing us with the 6 subject areas for the future focus are ones that simply don't lend themselves to picking and choosing. As a community, we have no choice. The complex tapestry that is our urban existence requires that we move forward in each and every one of those areas. It's going to cost money to achieve some of those areas, but as we mentioned when we unveiled the Future Focus program, that the cost, people ask how much is it going to cost? And the answer is very simple. It's going to cost far less than if we fail to measure up to those challenges. What I will do as mayor, and what I've done in the areas that I've been responsible for currently, is to focus on the expenditures that we know we're going to make, whether it is transportation, sewer, water, public safety, and work with people in this room and who are viewing it at home to make sure that we're coaxing the most out of those resources. And I think they're there if we're willing to make that commitment.
One of the problems with the Future Focus document is that the goals haven't been prioritized. And for me, there is one priority that heads all the lists. And that's for us to deal with managing the potential growth that's coming into this area and the need to build a strong and diverse economy for the creation of jobs, for the creation of wealth, for the ability to find the resources with public and private sector as partners to build the necessary housing in the core of the city to maintain that growth, to develop a coherent economic development strategy so that we can have jobs, jobs that pay family wage, to focus on the development of downtown, retail, commercial, cultural, housing and dwelling opportunities, and to deal with the issues of Main Street Portland, and to build the strength between business neighborhood associations and neighborhood associations to work together to solve the problems and meet the opportunities for the growth coming in the next decade.
Ms. Katz, your opponent has accused you of cutting deals to win labor endorsements. What is your response?
Anybody who has watched my public service career knows I don't make deals. Yes, I spoke to the firefighters and I told them that the research that I had seen and the reports that I had read, and when firefighters and the management comes to the city council and tells us that for the city this size, 4 or 5 crew on fire engines is appropriate. And when I look at the wonderful record that we have in not only saving lives, but saving properties, I did say that I supported maintaining 4 crew teams until I was shown that we could go down and reduce them to 3 or less. That information is not available right now for a city the size of Portland. I do not make deals. I have never made deals, and I am surprised that my opponent would use those kinds of techniques in this positive campaign that he's running.
Well, I was there too, being pilloried by the union. And I told them too that I would be willing to analyze new data. And in fact, I was the person in the city council who has pushed to have an analysis done so that we would have quantitative information. But one of the things you cannot do in the context of a political campaign is to make commitments about things that are management prerogatives or more appropriately dealt with in the context of collective bargaining. And to do so, however well intended, betrays a lack of understanding of the dynamic of what happens in local government, the realities of dealing with unions and collective bargaining, and frankly sets the wrong sort of tone in terms of what we need to do in all areas of public safety to look at the way that we do business.
Mr. Blumenauer, you and Ms. Katz have both said that gun control laws are one way to increase community safety, but you've taken different approaches. The Katz 1989 gun control bill versus your 1992 initiative petition. Please tell us why your approach makes us safer than your opponents.
The approach that was taken in 1989 to secure, for instance, a longer waiting period for the purchase of a handgun and other provisions that we in the city agreed with was made at the expense of, dare I say the term, deal with the NRA to allow the legislation to proceed. And what they got back was virtually unlimited control of concealed weapons permits in this community. It reversed the presumption, and we had a situation where we had less than 20 concealed weapons permits in Portland, in Multnomah County prior to that, skyrocket to over 4,000. We said, go ahead, have a waiting period as long as you want, but having the lid off the concealed weapons permits is not going to make it safer here. Move forward and deal with the other loopholes. That's why I've come forward with an initiative to at least give Portlanders the choice to strengthen the state law and not be held hostage to the legislature and the NRA.
There's a difference between deal-making or hostage-making and the political realities in the legislature of consensus building and compromising. My bill prevented felons from getting weapons and extended the longest waiting period in the country to 15 days and required background checks, and also required background checks of up to 45 days for concealed weapons permit. required criminal and mental health checks that were not in the law before, so that those concealed weapons could be given out willy-nilly across the state. Recently, I met with 3 sheriffs who deal with this issue every single day, and they've said, Vera, the bill works. The concealed weapons permit is not a problem. Don't change it. You have totally alienated, Commissioner, members of our community and law-abiding citizens, and they feel very manipulative by your actions. I want to ask the question of you, where were you for 20 years when some of us were trying to deal with strong firearms control?
Ms. Katz, while everyone is for recycling, the city's new curbside program has flooded the market with more recyclables than can be used. Furthermore, the monthly cost has caused a substantial increase in illegal dumping. What should be done to address these 2 problems?
You just answered my question. Actually, today, not only was my garbage picked up at curbside, but my garbage can was taken. And I'm afraid to ask Commissioner Blumenauer for another garbage can. I'm afraid he'd hike everybody's rates up again. Oh, come on. That was a joke. I would hope that as this wonderful program gets going, that I must add the legislature mandated the cities this size to do recycling, that we would be able to add additional plastics, that we would be able to add what fills my missing garbage can more than anything else is paper and junk mail, and that I would hope that we would be able to contain the costs of this recycling program and make it more in line with our neighboring cities.
The success of the program carries with it the potential of solving the 2 problems that you mentioned. By having a steady, predictable source of supply of recycled materials, it's going to make it easier for the industries involved to utilize them, to develop those markets, and deal with a long-term approach to reducing this waste. Additionally, we have dedicated some of the franchise fee that is collected under this system to dealing with neighborhood nuisances, so we can deal with the problems that are associated with the nuisance, the illegal dumping, and so forth. The costs are going to go up no matter who is the next mayor, because it's no longer free to throw things into landfills, into wetlands. We're now trucking it 140 miles to the desert in eastern Oregon. And I will continue to support a responsible program to try and hold the costs down while telling the people the truth about why it costs more.
Okay, we're going to open things up a bit here now. We're going to have each candidate ask 3 questions of his opponent or her opponent. The question must be asked in 30 seconds. The opponent will have a minute to respond, after which the questioner will have a 30-second rebuttal. The role of questioner will alternate between candidates, and we'll begin with Mr. Blumenauer. Mr. Blumenauer, your first question.
Representative Katz, the last 3 finance reports you issued in your campaign have been woefully inadequate. Checks disappear, thousands of dollars of contributions have been hidden. How much money you've actually received and spent keeps changing. How can Portlanders trust you to manage their city finances in an honest and open fashion when you've not been able to file accurate campaign finance reports?
Well, let's get to the facts, Commissioner Blumenauer. I have a letter in my hand from the Office of the City of Auditor, and it has identified 7 of the complaints that your campaign has issued. And I must say that campaign complaint 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 have been dismissed. Campaign complaints about in-kind contributions, including unnecessary information, such as volunteer services, and the accountant says that it's better to over-report than under-report, dismissed. In-kind contributions, including coffees and other invalid items, no violation. no violation for questionable document of expenses, no violation for discrepancy records provided by Earl Blumenauer's campaign in the first pre-election return, because you ought to know that a transfer of funds from one account is not necessarily an expenditure. So let's try to get the record straight. Now, there are two areas that will be reviewed. One is contributions that are accounted by the day the accountant receives them versus the day the check is written. That has never been cleared as to what needs to occur on batching of contributions.
Honest, accurate campaign spending reports are not just for the press or for campaign opponents. They're for the public to know where the money comes from and how it is spent in the campaign. Anybody who examines your financial report does not know how much money you raised, does not know where it comes from, and is very unclear about where it was spent.
Commissioner Blumenauer, you say that public safety is the #1 priority for city government. Why then is it that you offered no motion, no amendments during the budget process to redirect money to public safety or any other priority of yours?
I have been working on the issues of public safety in the city since the day I got there, and people in this room are aware of the work that I have done in terms of the management of my own bureaus, transferring money to police. I worked extensively in the course of this budget process to be able to deliver a tighter budget, but frankly, I understand the realities at that point. There weren't the votes, and I wasn't going to be involved with a political charade making motions for the sake of making motions, because I'm working with those people day in and day out, and I expect that by the time the budget goes into effect, July 1st, I'll win some converts in terms of redirecting some spending that I think can be redirected. But I'm not going to try and be punitive. I'm not going to do something for purposes that will make it look good in a forum like this. I would have been there in the forum. If you felt so strongly that there was money to be saved, it's interesting you didn't talk to any of our budget advisory committees, you didn't show up in any city council sessions, and we hear about it today.
Correction for the record, again, I did talk to the budget advisory committees, and I have talked with your members of the Office of Finance and Administration ad nauseum. I have looked and I found potential savings, and you should have looked for the savings to pare down the cost of city government yourself. Taxpayers are demanding it, or maybe you haven't heard the message that government has not responded to ballot measure number 5. Commissioner Blumenauer, you should have done something, anything. The people of Portland were counting on you using your local governmental experience, and you failed them.
Thank you. Representative Katz, after your 1989 gun legislation, it is now easier to purchase an assault weapon than a pistol. Concealed weapons permits have skyrocketed from less than 20 to over 4,000, and there is virtually no regulation of the vast secondhand gun market. Why shouldn't Portlanders have the right to strengthen inadequate state laws by the enactment of the constitutional initiative that I am currently circulating?
I must repeat again, Commissioner, you were nowhere on the issue for 20 years in the legislature, nor were you anywhere when we worked for 6 months with the chiefs of police and the sheriffs and representatives of gun interests, both pro and con. I do not support willy-nilly amending of the Oregon Bill of Rights. I do not support a patchwork of different gun ordinances in Oregon. I support uniform, national, and state firearms legislation, and what we did in Oregon has strengthened public safety by requiring 15-day waiting periods, fingerprints, background checks for felons and for the mentally ill. Yes, Commissioner Blumenauer, the bill isn't perfect. I'll be the first one to admit it. And we need to go back to the legislature again. But unfortunately, because of your initiative and because of the action of Multnomah County and the City Council of Portland, it is going to be very difficult because the trust and the confidence between those groups have weakened dramatically, and it will be very difficult to further pass legislation for statewide uniform firearms control.
Reflect on that answer for a moment. The last session of the legislature did nothing to strengthen the loopholes that Representative Katz talks about. I never said that some of the things that she did weren't good. I said the price was too high for Portland. We can do better. I've asked the question repeatedly, why can't we do better with this constitutional amendment? Why in heaven's name is it a step backwards to say if you've got your assault weapon in Portland, you've got to take it apart before you take it across town? That's lunacy. I suggest that what we do is not be held hostage to the NRA, pass this initiative, and allow people here to enact the gun legislation that they want.
Ms. Katz?
Commissioner Blumenauer, you accepted over $30,000 in campaign contributions from local garbage haulers. At the same time, you were drafting an ordinance which locked in a lifetime profits for this industry. Would you explain to the people of Portland why the garbage industry is backing your campaign so heavily?
Everybody who was involved with the negotiations, environmentalists, the garbage industry, citizens throughout the area who are concerned about recycling, I'm proud to say we're a part of that process. And I am pleased that if you look at the list of people who've endorsed me, it includes not just the people in the industry who've been shut out for years, or the union members, and ironically there is one union that actually endorsed me, the Teamsters, and the people who are involved with in terms of the actual recycling. Those of you who are in this room have seen me take the heat regarding all sorts of controversial issues where there was no payoff, no political benefit. I did it because it was right. And the people in the industry, the recyclers, the people in the community who care about that recognize and respected the fact that I went into something that could have been a losing proposition. I worked with them in a very public way. We came back with a program that's working, the public understands, and as a result, they supported me. And I'm proud of the people in the industry and the recyclers and the environmentalists who are supporting supporting me in this effort.
I need to add, Commissioner Blumenauer, the teachers union also supported you. Commissioner Blumenauer, you can't have it both ways. You cannot falsely accuse others of political deal-making while you're currently accepting tens of thousands of dollars from the trash hauling industry, an industry whose financial security you virtually guaranteed by charging more for garbage rates than ever in the history of the city of Portland. I have not said it was deal-making, and I hope that we stop once and for all and accuse each other of that kind of activity. It is unprofessional.
Is it my turn? Representative Katz, throughout this campaign, your responses to problems have involved promotion of more spending. $151 million for an East County sewer project, more money for police, the arts, low-income housing, business assistance, guaranteeing four-person crews, without explaining where the money is going to come from. What will be the cumulative effect of that, and where is it going to come from?
You know, Commissioner Blumenauer, and somebody asks a candidate who's going to be running this city, what are some of your ideas to deal with the problems that this city has to deal with in the future? And you begin to articulate some ideas, you then slap it with costing money. Now let's go through it. The arts budget was adopted by the City Council. You voted no. The need to assist neighborhood business associations means only that you need to send the message to PDC that they are to link their activity, their economic activity with business neighborhood associations. They've done it in the past. You accused me of a program that would cost money, that would create loans for low-income housing. Well, Commissioner Blumenauer, you ought to read the state statute. We have created many programs on the state level that we have already funded that provides resources to lower the cost of capital for us to build affordable housing, provides credit, and provides low-interest loans. You've accused me of talking about site review and design review. We currently have design review, and Commissioner Blumenauer, you really ought to consider for this city of Portland as we grow to allow neighborhood associations the opportunity for site review on major, not every property, but on major development.
The proposals that I mentioned, and I went through a few of them here, are not proposals that I have made up. Those are ones that we have all heard you mention on the stump. I suggest that this is not the time for the city to spend more money to solve problems without being very clear about where the money is going to come from. That's the job of the mayor, where the money comes from and how it's spent. I have been clear throughout this campaign in terms of my linkage very clearly.
Commissioner Blumenauer, you're going to love this question. It's almost like we spent time together on this. Commissioner Blumenauer, would you please list some of the ideas you have thus far discussed during the course of this campaign, and how much would they cost?
I have been very careful in the course of this campaign to make clear that these initiatives that I'm proposing, in fact, don't need to cost more money. They can save money. I've given 3 specific examples to my friends in the arts community where we can take existing resources from the county fair activities, from the cable franchise fees, and from the hotel-motel tax, and redirect actually more money than was in the city budget and provide stable, long-term funding for the arts. Having one urban county rather than 3 counties existing plus metro is actually not something that's going to cost more money. It's going to cost less, and it's going to provide better service. And those are the types of specifics that I've been dealing with, and I think they're what people are interested in, and yes, I think that is keeping with the spirit and the message of Measure 5. That's what I've been talking about. That's what I've been doing while I'm in office, and that's what I will do if I'm elected mayor.
Let me refresh your memory on just a few of the spending proposals you suggested during this campaign. Tearing up the East Bank Freeway. Currently, we're spending it would take $263 million to replace. We're currently spending $115 million. It would probably take $20 million to tear down, and millions of dollars for a light rail system before we could actually destroy I-5 the way you suggested. You recommended toll roads, the possibility of toll. Time? Okay. Over $2 billion.
Okay, we now return to our City Club panelists for the final questioning in the debate. As before, the candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question, and the opponent will have 1 minute to rebut. We begin with Jeff Tashman's question of Mr. Blumenauer.
Mr. Blumenauer, if you had been mayor for the last 8 years instead of Bud Clark, what would be different in Portland today?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that has made a difference for Bud Clark being mayor has been a sense of civility and caring and openness and honesty in local government that you don't see in cities around this country. And if I'd been mayor for the last 8 years, there'd be some things different maybe in some technical and budget matters, and there may be some differences in terms of priority and management. But it would be a tall order to have replicated what Bud has done bringing a city council that used to occasionally, Mildred may be a little cranky, I'm told, bring them together, knowing that they're each a member of the team, and in my case, Bud turning me loose on some really tough projects and giving me his full support, and still letting people know they could walk through the door and it was their city hall. And I hope that I could do as good a job.
That was a fine answer, and I can't add very much to that. He has been a good mayor. He has brought the city council as a team. I couldn't say whoop whoop because it just doesn't come out of my mouth that way. I probably would say other things, but not that. I would have been made on management issues and the budget process itself, and finalizing the document for Portland's future in terms of identifying what the major goals ought to be and what the priorities ought to be. But he has been a fine mayor, one of us, as we begin struggling in the next 4 years.
Ms. Katz, candidate George Bush chose the phrase, "read my lips," to introduce his most important promise to voters in 1988. Please tell us your most important promise to Portland voters by completing this statement. Read my lips.
Read my lips, the city of Portland. We are a wonderful place to live, and a wonderful place to work, and a wonderful place to send our children to school. Read my lips, we will work together to keep it that way. Read my lips, I promise that this administration will be open and honest with you, listen to your concerns, heed your counsel and advice, and read my lips, you're all going to have to get involved more than what you're getting involved right now, because I cannot do it by myself. I will need you. Read my lips. The city of Portland needs you.
I think that that's the proper tone to be undertaken, because I've had the privilege in the course of my public service career to be involved with lots of technical solutions. People have accused me of staying up late at night trying to figure out different ways of doing things with budgets or odd policies here and there, and that I really like some of this bureaucratic nonsense, and that I like reading those technical reports. And I think occasionally I've actually been able to come forward with some creative solutions. But one of the things that you understand working in the city of Portland on the city council and contemplating the awesome responsibility of being mayor is that all of the ideas and plans and dreams and the technical computer runs and the research really isn't going to cut it. What's going to be required is making sure that every man, woman, and child in Portland understands that they're a part of the problem and a part of the solution, and that in my administration, I'll be listening.
Thank you, panelists, for those questions. We'll now move to 3-minute closing statements from each candidate, and we'll start with Mr. Blumenauer.
Phew. Didn't think we'd get here. In Portland today, and in fact, across America, people are almost desperate to restore dignity, purpose, and meaning to the political process. They want someone to not just talk about it. They want someone who will actually roll up their sleeves and get the job done. For the last year, I've been leading by example. I have dealt with some of the toughest and most controversial issues in City Hall and delivered quality results that are acceptable to the community and that are working. I've given direct and clear answers to some of your hardest questions. And I've conducted a campaign that Portland can be proud of. It's not just the many projects that our volunteers have been involved with, although each was significant in itself, touched people's lives, and made Portland a little better. But we've demonstrated that people in this community do care about the political process. They are willing to make a difference in ways that they haven't before. We've demonstrated that politics can be constructive, fun, and bring people together. Now, management ability, fiscal responsibilities, and snappy answers to one-minute questions about how we'd solve the problems of the world are important. But what was just mentioned, that all the money in the world and new spending programs won't solve our problems unless we, as a community, work together. This is how I have served as a member of the City Council. This is how I've run a campaign, and it's how I would work for and with you as the next mayor. Now, I've just finished my comments 30 seconds early. I'm not going to subject you to another prolonged moment of silence, and I wouldn't want people hearing the silence at home to think that the debate was over and turn off the TV and not hear Vera. But I would like you, in the course of the day, the 30 seconds that we have given you, to stop and reflect on what I've said, because I think that that is really the essence of what you want from Portland's next mayor, and with your help, will happen. Thank you very much.
Ms. Katz?
During this campaign, I've talked about meeting the challenges and opportunities facing Portland. I've offered proposals to maintain a strong and diverse economy, to reduce the violence in our city, to increase our competitiveness as a community by providing a world-class education for all of our children, and to strengthen the bonds of trust and confidence between citizens and their government. I've called for setting of citywide goals and priorities, and for the measuring of results instead of fixating on the process. I've spoken of the need for city government that is flexible, that responds to customers, that decentralizes bureaucracies and empowers a workforce in our community to be catalysts for change. I've described reforms that will free the budget from turf battles, that have to do more with the council politics than with serving the citizens of Portland. And today, I've described ways to pay for the additional resources needed to fight the increased violence in our community. My candidacy is about change, with the promise of a caring government that is competent, productive, and innovative. My opponent responds to a question about his vision for Portland one afternoon by saying what his vision is not. My opponent has failed to offer a budget process that isn't business as usual. My opponent has tried to claim the mantle of fiscal and management responsibility when his record on these issues are questionable. And in a typical political fashion, he has consistently mischaracterized my positions and the effect of my proposals. What we are about here is more than winning an election, more than an exercise of scoring points in this sort of political boxing match. We are supposed to be about defining the choices that will determine what Portland would look like in the next century, for us, for our children, and the generations to come. We want a city that overcomes fear and ignorance and bigotry with tolerance and understanding. We want to give every child the opportunity to succeed, to work for a family wage, to live in a decent home, and to raise a family. We want livable neighborhoods and a confident and determined business community ready to create and shape opportunities. We have everything we need to celebrate diversity. The future isn't something we inherit. It is something we create through dedication, hard work, and sacrifice. The time has come to share our clarity of vision, our unity of purpose, our commitment of spirit. For Portland, the time to begin that work is today, is now. Thank you.
Earl and Vera, on behalf of the City Club, we thank you for coming here today to share your thoughts, your humor, but most of all for your commitment to the City of Portland. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.